Canada in particular has large quantities of critical minerals that are essential for our clean energy future, for the world's clean energy future. And I believe we have an incredible opportunity to work together so Canada and the United States can source and supply here in North America everything we need for reliable and resilient supply chains.
What concretely does that mean going forward? Francois-Philippe Champagne is Canada's Industry Minister. Minister, I wanted to start off on the concept of Buy American and whether or not you and your government were able to explicitly secure any promise or words of assurance from the President that Canada will be exempt from the rules that are going to be in place soon around Buy American.
Well, I think you don't need to take it from me, but take it from the speech of the president. In my sense, and I was also in the bilateral meeting, there's a sense of togetherness. The message we've been bringing to Washington is in order for the Americans to be resilient, Canada is to be part of the equation. You've heard that when it comes to electric vehicle. We heard that towards critical minerals. You've also heard that with microchip when you talk about Beaumont specifically in his speech. So listen, it's always something that we need to push as Canadians with our American friends. But I think the words of the president that were spoken in the House of Commons were inspiring in that sense that he truly appreciates that we need to work together. We need to onshore more manufacturing in North America. And he understands the very special relationship in our supply chain. So I think, you never get too much of a president attention. And certainly having him for 24 hours and making the case is a good moment for Canada.
And certainly you're right that, the way in which he spoke, he said even North American instead of American a number of times. I think the rhetoric is certainly reassuring. I guess what my question is more specifically is whether you believe the reality matches the rhetoric and whether there were any assurances provided to your government that the reality will in the future, that, for example, in these new Buy American rules, Canada will be able to secure an exemption.
Well, like I said, the words of the president are the ones that he spoke, but like you and Canadians heard a president, like you said, using North America a number of times, and that's certainly the case we've been making. We always talk about, Buy North America, making sure that we gave a number of examples where it just makes sense to do things together. I think there's an understanding, not only from the president, but I would say with his team, and we spent quite a number of hours with them talking critical minerals, talking about EV, we talk about, biomanufacturing, we thought about the microchip. The fact that he mentioned, Beaumont specifically, because I said at the time, we want to replicate what we've done in the auto sector with respect to microchip, and him mentioning that Canada is the place where packaging and testing is being done. Those are very powerful examples because it's not talking to a Canadian audience, but that's talking to an American audience who's listening. And, since then, I can assure you, Vashi, I've received a number of messages that say, we get it now.
If I could follow up on the words of the president around critical minerals. Specifically, he said something along the lines of, you've got the critical minerals, referring to Canada, but don't want to produce the product. We want to produce the product. What did you take from that?
Well, I think there's an understanding. We said, we have the critical mineral, but there's also an understanding that we want to refine them and we want to be adding the value added portion to it. We're not just going to be extracting and sending that over. And I think there's an understanding in his team. We've been attracting Volkswagen, we've been attracting Stellantis, LG. I think they see that there's going to be things both sides of the border, but in total, we are better together. That was this sense of togetherness that say, folks, you have the critical minerals. For example, in semiconductors, you're doing the packaging and testing. With respect to biomanufacturing, there's things on both sides. So I think you have to go back far in history to sense more of a togetherness on the economy, on the environment, on security issues. That was the key message today, in my view, from the president.
And I certainly understand that's your view and that was the message delivered. But I was asking specifically about what he said on critical minerals, because while you contend that Canada wants to refine them, his words seem to contend the opposite, right? You've got the critical minerals but don't want to produce the product. So they want our minerals and then they want to refine them or produce them in the United States. Is that okay with your government?
But that's not my understanding necessarily, and you have to put that in context also of the discussion we had. I think he understands and his team well understand that, we have attracted a number of investments in Canada. They understand that the battery ecosystem is going to be on both sides of the border. And the nature of our discussion, the intent was what we want is continental onshoring to make sure that we would have more resilient supply chain. I think the word resiliency came again and again and again. And in part of that resiliency, Canada has to be part of the equations. So that's my understanding. If you put that in context, I think that's the right understanding of what the president was saying when he was speaking to the House of Commons, talking about the fact that we have the critical mineral. It's quite an acknowledgement, I would say, Vashi, from a U.S. president to acknowledge that Canada, in fact, has the critical minerals for the batteries, but also for the semiconductors. And talking, you said it so many times in terms of North America. These words will carry in the United States, and certainly we will continue to make the case for that when we meet with our U.S. counterparts.
And Minister, very quickly before I let you go, I just wanted to look ahead to the budget because you mentioned the Volkswagen deal. The Deputy Prime Minister has signaled that the budget will certainly, one major plank will be the response to the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States. I know that you said the last time we spoke that you weren't yet ready to disclose the full scope of the federal investment to secure landing the Volkswagen deal. Will those details be made public in the federal budget, and will Canadians have a better sense of the overall scope from a fiscal perspective of how your government plans to respond to the IRA?
Well, you know, Vashi, by experience, I cannot talk specifically about what's going to be in the budget, but what I can say to Canadians, that we will disclose the numbers in due course. We always do that. But like I said last time, it would not be smart for us to do that now because we're talking to others. On the other end, Canadians have been told in the fall economic statement, we said we will have a level playing field when it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, and that we would be selective. And I think the case of Volkswagen was celebrated. And I think you're going to see more of these cross-border. The IBM initiative that we talk about, a new corridor, for example, on semiconductor coming from the U.S. president, that's a big win for Canada. So to your question, the details will come in due course, but just not now because that would not be smart as we're talking to a number of actors. I can tell you, I told you, the moment that Volkswagen comes to Canada, the phone is ringing. That's exactly what's happening.
Okay, Minister, I'll leave it there. I know you have a busy day ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure.